All right, what's up, my brothers? We've got a strange video about a couple that wants to open the relationship. The wife wants to open up the relationship, but here's the kicker. They're both female, so it's actually a lesbian couple. I've dealt with this many times where it's a man and a woman, so I'm going to hit it from this other angle and see what goes on in this type of relationship and why the wife of 6 years is now asking for an open relationship. So let's dig into this. It says, my wife has very casually brought up the idea of having sex with other people a few times over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, and I never thought much of it. It felt very theoretical and kind of jokey, so I never gave it much thought and always replied that I didn't know and I hadn't thought enough about it to say whether or not I'd be interested. The first mistake here is, if you're not into something, you need to set strong boundaries. You just say flat out no. Being wishy-washy about it and looking at it as jokey is not a good approach to anything. And you have to understand that even if somebody comes at something or it might come off as jokey, there's always truth to every joke. One of the reasons why stand-up comedy is freaking hilarious is because there's truth to every single joke. So she goes on and says, about a year ago while on a trip to another state, we met a fun guy while traveling and spent the afternoon hanging out, then got dinner and drinks. As the night progressed, my wife got very flirty with him to the point where it was basically just them flirting and talking and ignoring me completely. So we've got a lesbian couple here that's a night out of town with a fun guy. What do you think he was thinking while he was sitting down talking to these gals, more specifically the one that was flirting with him the most? It goes on to say, I finally convinced her to call it a night, and we went back to the hotel, and I told her that I didn't like whatever the hell she just pulled there, that it felt extremely disrespectful to me and made me feel like shit. She kept trying to defend herself, saying that she just liked to feel sexual and likes to flirt, and it's how she expresses her sexuality, and it isn't a big deal, which made me even more frustrated. This continued to be a big argument for the rest of the trip, with neither of us really getting on the same page. I tell the story just for some background on where I'm coming from. A month or two ago, she told me that she wants an open relationship. I was obviously very surprised. We've been together for more than 6 years, married for about 3, so it's a bit late to spring this on me. We've also been actively planning to start trying for kids. I wonder how they're going to do that if they're both female. Need a sperm donor, right? Which to me seems incompatible with an open relationship. I'd said I'd think about it, but that at first glance I wasn't particularly interested. We've talked about it a number of times since, and I've shared that I just don't think I'm interested in doing this. I don't want to have an open relationship. She's dug her heels further in and now saying that it is essential for her to have an open relationship because that's how she needs to express her sexuality, regardless of what our sex life together is like. It's a core part of her being and her self-identity to be sexual with others as well. I wonder what magazine or book she pulled that from. She keeps pushing me for why I'm not interested. What about it not interested in? What if it was just having sex and not kissing, or just kissing and not having sex? And how this is simply something that she absolutely needs. Honestly, on its own, it turned me off. The idea, more than anything now, I really am not interested in it, and she's trying to force it on me, basically. At this point, I don't see a compromise. Either we have an open relationship and I'm angry and resentful, or we keep it closed and she's angry and resentful. We've talked about it this way too. She wants to keep talking about how to solve it, but I just don't know what is left to talk about. We both shared how we feel, and it's incompatible. I'm feeling really lost about what to do now. I don't want to throw this all away, but I also don't want to enter into what sounds like a relationship hell, trying to navigate an open relationship that only one person wants. Furthermore, I don't want to raise kids like this, and she says she doesn't she doesn't and can't know if she'd want to stay open forever. But we have a life, a house together, pets. It just seems silly that this is her hill to die on. So they want to have kids, and one of them isn't liking it, and the other one's all about, I guess, banging other people. This is pretty much how it falls apart for most couples, and it's generally the missus, I find, in these types of breakdowns that wants to open up the relationship. And generally the reason why is because she's bored, he's generally boring, and she's looking for some variety and excitement in it. And usually it's her going off on the weekend, banging some alpha, while she comes back home and beta bucks basically helps take care of the bills, split the rent, and that sort of thing. It's probably the same type of scenario. Her regular, girlfriend, wife, partner, whatever you want to call them, isn't really doing it for her. She's attracted to other people, clearly not just women, because she's flirting heavily with dudes while they're traveling, so she's clearly bisexual, and she wants to escalate it. So let's come up with a few closing thoughts on this, because it's really not a science experiment. or complicated at the end of the day, if we're being honest. All right, so here's what we universally know about women when it comes to jealousy. They get jealous very different than the way that men do. Men don't have any assurance of paternity, so they're more concerned with, did you have sex? How many times did you have sex? Did you orgasm when you had sex? When a woman betrays on their end, because it is looked at as a betrayal, generally speaking, when somebody experiences it when the other goes outside of the relationship. Now, this is slightly unique. This is a little bit different because we've got two gals, but I believe the reasons for her hesitancy and her jealousy towards this is because she probably feels like her wife might end up finding somebody else that she loves more, or might be a better choice for her, and leaves the relationship, because women inherently know that when they start going outside of the relationship, it's because they're done. And we've seen this in a lot of studies. We've seen this in psychology as well, and of course the stuff that I've talked about for years now. And the reality is generally speaking, when women start to go outside of the relationship, I don't believe that they can be committed to a person and bang other people on the side. There might be a small minority of women that have the fortitude to untap from their biological programming, but for women it's generally one person at a time, not one person back and forth, multiple people, although for some women they can do that, but I don't think it's that common. I think it's more the outlier than it is the norm. So as far as a situation like this, it just should be a flat out no. Whenever a woman's like, yo, I want to open up the relationship and start banging other people, it doesn't matter if it's men or women, any admission of this, any request for this should be turned down. And it's just a flat out no. Now, if they keep pushing and they want to do it, and they're doing the whole, well, if I don't get it, this is a part of me, I'm going to slowly die inside and blah, 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 then you really only have one choice, and that's just to let them go. Because if you're going to hold strong to your principles and you're not going to allow this sort of thing in your relationship, in your life, then you have to be willing to walk away. And that's one of the problems that most people have. Doesn't matter if they're straight or lesbian or whatever. That's one of the problems that most people have, is they have the inability to walk away because they're too ego invested into something, right? So you have to have that ability. I've often said many times, and again, this doesn't even matter if it's a lesbian type of relationship, but I've often said, look, if they don't know that they can be replaced, you're in a very difficult position in that relationship, because at some point you're going to deal with something, and it might be something as extreme as what this lady's dealing with. Not always, but potentially. Anyway, just wanted to throw a few thoughts on this because I thought it was an interesting post, considering that it was dealing with two women, my wife. So what do you guys think below? Do you have any experience with this? Comment. And pinned in the top comment, there's a bunch of useful links with stuff that I'm affiliated with, including my book, my supplement line, my community, a bunch of other stuff. Let me know below. See you guys later. Peace out.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit, I got no love.